Okay, so we are picking up in chapter 1 of Pirkei Avos, chapters of the fathers. We're up to Mishna 13, and we last week left off with the statement from Hillel, my namesake, Hillel Hazakin, Hillel the elder, who taught one should be from the students of Aaron the high priest, to love peace and pursue peace, to love people and bring them close to Torah. That was his previous teaching. And it's interesting to contrast that with today's Mishnah, which begins as follows. It says, Hu haya omer. He used to say, Naged Shema, Aved Shemei. It's actually a pretty hard word to translate, Naged, but here they translate it in our translation that we're using as he makes his name great. Well, Shema is his name. He's Naged Shema. If he makes his name great, in other words, he pursues honor, I guess, and fame. So then Aved Shema, then he loses his name, or he causes it to become destroyed. Udelo Mosif, Yasef. So it's kind of a play on words, okay, because Delo Mosif means somebody who doesn't add. Yasef will be like gathered in, will seize, will die, maybe. Udelo Yalef, and somebody who doesn't learn, Kitala Chayav. That person deserves death. If they don't learn, they deserve death. Udishtamesh betaga chalef. And somebody who makes use of the crown, shall pass, shall be switched, shall pass away. That's what the Mishnah says. It's a very unclear Mishnah, unlike some of the other ones that we've had. Very vague, very confusing, at least to me. And just interesting to contrast this with the previous one where, this is Hillel the elder. He was all about loving peace and pursuing peace. And really, we know this from his biography, really, that he was a man of peace. And this Mishnah just seems a little harsh. Somebody who pursues peace, pursues a big name, a great name, their name will be destroyed. If they don't add, they'll seize. If they don't learn, they deserve to die. And if somebody uses the crown, we have to see what that crown is, then they pass on. So pretty harsh, but I guess if we understand who it's coming from, then we also can understand that he's not this is a man of peace who's talking, so we just have to understand it from that perspective. So let's begin with trying to offer some approaches to how we understand this Mishnah. But first, let's answer a hand that's raised. Yeah, go ahead, John.
The translation that I have, instead of saying does not study, it says teach instead of study.
Ah, okay.
Is that a reasonable translation?
Yeah, I think often actually teach and study, they have the same, in Hebrew, they have the same root.
Yeah.
Like lamed, mem, daled, lamed, lilmod.
But I think it makes a difference in how you understand the Mishnah, right?
Right. Yeah. So they're going with the interpretation that the person is not willing to teach. Okay, very good. Okay, so Rabbeinu Yonah, one of the great medieval commentaries on Pirkei Avos. Again, here he's quoted by Midrash Shmuel, who we're studying from. So he understands, first of all, very simply, Naged Shema, somebody who pursues a name, they're pursuing honor. Out of arrogance, they feel that they need to be recognized for their great name. Such a person loses their name. I think most simply understood is that we see through that when we see somebody trying to somebody who's arrogant, somebody who just wants fame and recognition. Other people see through that and they don't respect that. And instead of giving that person a good name, it gives that person a bad name. So a person who is into themselves and is pursuing a great name for themselves, that type of person ends up losing their name. And then we say udelo mosif yosef. If you don't add, then you cease. One who doesn't add ceases. So Rabbeinu Yonah says that this refers to someone who has learned a bit, and they say, well, I'm wise. I spent my time. I attended a few classes, or I attended yeshiva, or whatever it might be. And I know. Actually, it reminds me. Years ago, I had the strangest conversation. We had some random Shabbos guests. They were visiting from out of town, and we had them over for a meal. A young couple, and they had recently studied in Israel, in the husband in a yeshiva, and the girl in a seminary for a couple of years, and then they I don't know if that was before they were married or after, and then they moved to a city in the United States. They were visiting this Silver Spring area, and they got set up to eat a meal at our house on Shabbos. And I was explaining what I do, how I teach adults, in the kollel. That's what I do. And I create different programs, learning opportunities for adults. And the reaction, at least from one of them, was kind of like, why is that necessary? Like, it was almost as if they felt like they had done their learning, and who needs to learn more once you've learned for 2 years, and it was the strangest thing. But that's actually, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, what this is talking about. It's somebody who says, I know enough already. I've spent a couple of years studying, and I have nothing to add. And I've seen everything there is to see. I know everything I need to know. Why do I have to trouble myself to continue to study? So somebody who doesn't add, somebody who's not going to add to their knowledge, Yosef, that person, we're not wishing this on somebody, but really they could see what's the point of their life anymore at that point. If there's nothing else to do, nothing else to learn, nothing else to grow, nothing else to improve, then they might as well cease to exist. What's the point of life after that? If you've already, you have nothing else to learn and nothing else to accomplish. So a person has to continue to toil and to grow. And that's what we were created for, to continuously strive. And so that's somebody who knew something, studied a little bit, but doesn't want to add. And then there's the one, Dilgo Yalef, who doesn't learn in the first place. It just says, they might not know anything in the first place, but they don't want to learn. They don't want to expand their knowledge at all. So there again, it's a harsh language that the Mishna uses, but it says, Kitala chayav, such a person deserves death, again, because there's no point of life if a person isn't interested or willing to learn. Learning is how we grow. And a person who says, I don't need to learn anything, so that really defeats the purpose of life, where we learn and we grow. So that's Rabbeinu Yonah's approach. So again, the beginning of the Mishnah, somebody who pursues their name loses their name, but then it shifts somebody who, and we might be talking to the same kind of person, somebody who's arrogant, feels that they've made it already, so they want a great name, they don't want to put in any work, right? So such a person loses their name. They don't want somebody who won't add to their learning. He says, you might as well cease to exist, because what's the point if we're not willing to learn? Somebody who won't learn in the first place, the same thing. And really, we can offer us another version of this, very similar, but we can understand the words, somebody who doesn't add ceases, in a slightly different way, which is simply that's speaking not to learning, but to action. So we talk a lot about how we have two parts to our growth and our religion, basically, right? We have the learning, and then we have the doing. We have the study of Torah, and then the mitzvos, the commandments, and the deeds that we perform. So you can have someone who should be doing mitzvos, performing good deeds, and but they don't want to add to that. They don't want to add to their deeds. So again, such a person should seize what's the point of life if a person isn't willing to actually make use of their life, make something of themselves, making impact in the world. So somebody who is not mosif, somebody who doesn't add, somebody who doesn't contribute through their actions, Yosef might as well seize along the same lines. There's no purpose for them if they're not willing to roll up their sleeves a bit and perform good deeds and be involved in doing mitzvos. And then there's the person again who won't learn. Some of you won't learn. Same thing. There's no growth if we don't learn. If we're not learning constantly or regularly, then we can't grow. And then again, we're not going to fulfill our purpose in life. And or a person might learn and might do actions, but for the wrong reasons, just for fame and honor. And that's also not good. That's also a problem. And that, he says, is the last thing. Somebody who uses the crown. They want to be respected. They want people to call them rabbi. It makes them feel good, so they study. But it's not for the right reasons. So that person also, chalef, should pass on. They're not living for a purpose still. Such a person, even if somebody does mitzvos, does good deeds, studies Torah, but does it for honor, so also that person is not fulfilling their purpose. Now we do have a concept which is important, which is that even if somebody starts off doing something for the wrong reason, we hope that they arrive eventually at doing it for the right reasons. In Hebrew, we say mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma. Somebody does it not for the sake of heaven, but they'll come to do it for the sake of heaven eventually. So it could be that's why I'm just thinking now we don't use as harsh of a language for this last category. Chalef, the way that they interpret here, is means it's like the person has already passed, but not, they're like living a meaningless life, but not that we'll go so far as to say they may as well cease, because they can certainly develop from doing something for the wrong reasons to doing it for the right reasons. So now always everybody has the opportunity to improve, but in the moment, examining somebody in the moment, again, this Mishnah speaks kind of harshly, but we recognize this is Hillel, the same person who was a pursuer of peace, but he's kind of telling it like it is, that if a person is not adding either in their learning, in their Torah learning, they're not adding in their actions, so then they're not growing, they're not developing, they're not fulfilling their purpose in life. And therefore they might as well not be alive, is what he's saying, because what are they living for right now? Of course, a person can always turn that around. Okay, let's now flip completely, and we're going to read this Mishnah in a totally opposite way. So far, the way we've read it was on the negative side. We're being very critical of somebody who is pursuing honor or wasting their life away. So the Midrash Shmuel suggests an alternate reading, and this is actually the first way that he suggests reading it, which is completely the opposite. And it's building off of the previous Mishnah. The previous Mishnah, as we mentioned, was that Hillel said one should be from the students of Aaron, the high priest, loving peace, pursuing peace, loving people, and bringing them close to Torah. So he reads this Mishnah as follows. Naged Shemei. So if referring to the person referenced in the previous Mishnah, the person who loves peace and pursues peace, so his name should be made great. His name should be made great. So it's not saying, in the other way we read it was somebody who makes their name great will lose their name. Now it's saying, it's just continuing from the previous one. That person that I mentioned before in the last Mishnah who pursues peace, Naged Shmei. So that person's name should be made great. That person deserves recognition. They're not doing it for that purpose. They're not pursuing peace so that people give them the Nobel Peace Prize, but they deserve recognition for their efforts from other people. And so somebody who's a student of Aaron, somebody who's a pursuer of peace, Naged Shmei, his name should be great, and even after he or she leaves the world, they should be recognized. And that's the next line, Aved Shmei. And if we lose them, it's a big loss. Aved Shmei, when we lose them, that hits the world hard. They've really been lost. We've lost something great when we lose such a person as a pursuer of peace. And then it talks to a person who does not concern themselves with such a loss. Delo mosif, somebody who does not add, does not get sad when such a person is lost, somebody who does not eulogize, somebody who does not acknowledge and care that such a person was lost. So that person, Yosef, should cease. If a person doesn't recognize the value, the contribution of somebody who pursues peace and makes peace, so such a person should cease. That's still harsh, but now it's talking to now in this version we're focused on the person who is the pursuer of peace, and we're saying if somebody doesn't recognize that person's contributions, that person's importance, then they're missing out on something very important. And then it says, if somebody who does not learn from such a person, or somebody doesn't learn from Aaron, the high priest, if somebody doesn't learn to be like a student of Aaron, so again, such a person is deserving of death. If the person doesn't want to be a pursuer of peace, then they are deserving of death. Again, very harsh wording, but the message is clear. Person should be always seeking peace. And then the one who uses the crown, that's the last clause. So that person also chalef, passes. So here he explains that this is also going back. Sorry, the way that he reads this is an interesting read. He reads the words together, that chalef is not a verb. Rather, he reads it as if somebody uses the crown that passes, then they're also deserving of death. Like the person who doesn't learn from the pursuer of peace, so too somebody who uses the crown that passes, also the same thing. What does it mean to use the crown that passes? So it means if somebody is the crown that passes is the honor that exists in this world. That if somebody is focused on the honor, the temporary honor of this world, it's a crown that passes on. It's temporary and it's futile, and so that person is grouped with the previous one. So the way that in this version, the way that we're reading it is we first say somebody who pursues peace, who's a student of Aaron. So Naged Shma, their name should be made great. We should recognize that. And even after they pass, and when they pass, Aved Shmei, it's a big loss to lose their name, to lose such a person. Udelo mosif, and somebody who responds without adding, without recognizing that, and speaking of the good deeds of such a person, So Yosef, that person who won't speak of it, who doesn't recognize it, should cease. Udelo Yalef, and somebody who doesn't learn from them and learn to be a student of Aaron, to be a pursuer of peace. Ketala Chayav, that person is deserving of death. And another person that's deserving of death is Dishtamish Bitaga Chalef, somebody who uses the temporary crown of this world, somebody who pursues honor also. So as I keep saying, this Mishna, the way it comes across is very strong. These are very strong terms, deserving of death. But I think the point, I don't think that he's wishing death on anyone. I think he's saying that that person is living a meaningless life. They're not making use of their life. If a person is not willing to be someone who pursues peace, if somebody is just pursuing honor, so that's a life without meaning. Okay. That was a more difficult Mishnah. Now we come to Mishnah 14, Yudalid, which is a very famous Mishnah. So we're still quoting Hillel the elder and Hu Haya Omer. He used to say, Imein ani li, if I am not for myself, mi li, who will be for me? Ukishani la'atzmi, and when I am for myself, ma'ani, what am I? Vimlo achshav, and if not now, Masai, then when? So the basic meaning, I think, is very clear. There's different ways that we could say it, but a person is responsible for their own actions. If I don't, if I don't work on myself, then and do what I need to do for myself, then I can't expect others to do that for me. But also, if I'm just for myself, then what am I? That's a person has to live for others. And if not now, when? Everybody should live by that. If not now, when? Right? We should be ready to act with alacrity, etc. So before we go to the commentary of the Midrash Shmuel, so one of my all-time favorites is on this Mishnah. It's found in the introduction to a work by Rabbi Shimon Shkop, who was a pre-war Rosh Yeshiva Torah leader, and he's writing there about the definition of a gadol. The word gadol means great, but we use the word gadol to refer to a very great leader of the Jewish people. So we have a term like the gadol hador, the great one of the generation. So Rabbi Shkop is writing about what's a gadol? Ultimately, what is it the person who knows the most Torah? Are they automatically a gadol because they know a lot of Torah? So he says as follows, and he ties in this Mishnah. So he reads the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? Fine. And if I am for myself only, ma'ani, what am I? He says, what is this Mishnah trying to say with that sort of statement or question? What am I? Like, just say it. Say if I'm only for myself, then I'm stingy. I'm somebody who doesn't care about other people. Just say what it means. Why does it ask it as this question? Like, what am I? What's that trying to get across? So he explains that a gadol, a great person, is somebody who, when they say I, they're not just thinking about themselves. That their I is able to encompass many others. The Jewish people at large, their community, right? If a gadol, somebody who's great, is somebody who can think of others when making important decisions and can encompass and can take in the perspectives and the needs of an entire community and be able to sort of calculate based on that. Important decisions affect a lot of people. And if a person is only thinking about how it affects themselves, so then that's not a gadol. That's not somebody who's great. Somebody, to be great, we have to be able to incorporate, try to understand, and try to think of other people's perspectives as well in our decision making. And so he says that the idea is that we need to expand our I. When I say I, or in Hebrew, ani, who does that include? Is it me, myself, and I? Or when I say I, I'm also thinking about others. It's kind of like the royal we. The royal we is supposed to be the idea that when the monarch makes a decision, we would like this or that to happen. It's that the monarch is responsible for the whole kingdom and is thinking about what the kingdom needs. So there they express it as we. That's at least how they're supposed to think. We would like pancakes for breakfast doesn't necessarily affect the whole kingdom, although it could. But that's supposed to be the idea behind the royal we. But we're saying the royal I, right? The royal I is not I. The I can encompass many other people. When I think about I, who am I thinking? Just myself, or I'm thinking of the community at large? I'm thinking of others. So that's the idea. If I'm only for myself, what am I? Meaning my I is so limited if I'm only thinking of myself. If that's the middle clause there. If I'm for myself, then what am I? My I is nothing. But if I think of others, so then my I is now expansive and great. So that's the idea of Rabbi Shimon Shkop on this Mishnah. Okay, but getting back to the Midrash Shmuel, Rav Shmuel de Uzida. So he learns as follows. Nobody can force me to do good. Nobody can force me to do bad. I have free will to do as I want. And, that's our lot. That's our blessing, that God gives us free will to make decisions in the world. So we're not guided by any angel, any spiritual force that forces our hand one way or another. We make decisions for ourselves. And so if I'm not for myself, there's no angel that's going to guide my hand and guide me towards good decisions, towards good. So Mili, who will be for me? I have to be for myself. I have free will, and I have to make the right decisions on my own. And then when I am for myself, what am I? He's reading that what am I is actually like an exclamation, like how great am I because of that, in a good way, right? To recognize that we are created in the image of God, we have free will, and that's a tremendous thing. So when I am for myself, so what am I? Like how great? It's an exclamation. It works a little better in Hebrew, but how great am I, sort of, as a result of that? We have to recognize that we're endowed with something special, the free will. And because of that, right, and not only that, but angels, he says, don't have free will, right? We're even greater than angels in a certain sense, in that we have free will, as long as we exercise it the right way. And so now that I am focused on that, then certainly, then the question is, if not now, when, right? I have to put that free will to good use and make the right decisions based on that. So that's one approach. So it's all about free will. If I'm not for myself, there's nobody else who's going to do it for me or guide me or force my hand. I'm on my own. And when I am for myself, when I act with that free will, and I recognize that, then I recognize actually that that I have greatness. We all have greatness in that. We're even greater than angels. And therefore, if not now, when? We should act based on that. Another possible interpretation is that person might be very successful, however we define success, but many define it based on wealth and honor and these types of things. And so somebody might feel that, I've made it in life, I'm successful. So the Mishnah says, you remember, we all are only here temporarily. We won't be here forever. We won't be around forever. Our stuff might remain here, but we're not going to remain on this planet forever, on Earth. And therefore, we have to recognize, if I'm not for myself, meaning if I don't even belong to myself, meaning I'm going to pass on eventually. I'm not going to be here forever. If I don't even belong to myself, so what could be called mine? Nothing really. If I don't even own myself because I'm going to pass on, then he's reading in this version, me, li, who is for me, more as like what is for me. If I'm not even my own because I'm going to pass on, then nothing really belongs to me in this world. It's all temporary. Certainly things that are outside of myself, the materials that we amass during our lives, certainly that's not really mine because it doesn't have any permanence. We're not going to take it with us to the next world. So how can I become arrogant as a result, or feel that, oh, now I'm successful because I have this and that, right? So the Mishnah reminds us, right? If we don't even take ourselves with us, we don't even really belong to ourselves, then certainly all the things that are outside of ourselves are not really ours. However, and furthermore, if I am for myself, meaning if I think that I am for myself, meaning a young person might think that they're going to live forever, right? And we should all be blessed to live long, but it's never, nothing is ever known. And but a young person might think they're going to live forever, and they think, "Ani la'atzmi, I own myself. My body belongs to me, in that I'll be here forever." So we're reminded, mani, what am I? Right? That no, we have to have humility. What are we? We're just here temporarily, and everybody eventually leaves the world. And if that's the case, when we remind ourselves that we're eventually going to leave the world, so then if not now, when? Right? We have to seize the moment. None of us are going to be here forever. So we have to take advantage of every moment that we have to grow and to improve ourselves and improve the world around us. So according to this reading, this Mishnah really speaks about the temporary nature of life in this world, that that first of all, we recognize that we're eventually going to pass on. God willing, it should be after 120, but if I don't really own my own body, if that's temporary, then certainly, then immediately, what is for me? There's nothing that's really mine. It's all temporary. I shouldn't get full of myself for material success that I may have in this world. And even and somebody who thinks, Shani lets me, when I start to think I am for myself, that I'm going to live forever, mani, I have to be reminded, what am I? I'm really just, a fleeting life, and especially from God's perspective, in the scheme of things. Of course, God values every person, but just in the whole scheme of things, I'm temporary. So if not now, when? Right? If not now, when? Reminds me of the story of there's what's called a magid, like a speaker who goes from town to town, and he gives sermons to inspire the communities. So this this Maggid, this rabbi, he comes to one town and he tells them, he says, everyone in this town is going to die. So the people are like, they're shaking, right? I mean, what he means is eventually everybody's going to die. Eventually, everybody in this town is going to die. And the people, he's trying to inspire them, if not now, when, right? So everybody's like trembling in their seats, except for one guy in the front row. He's like, just, having a good time, and doesn't seem to be very shaken from this speaker. The speaker, he gets sort of his strength together again, and he says, one day everybody in this town is going to die. And again, the people are like shuddering, and this one guy in the front row is just like, having a good time. So he tries one more time, and still no effect on this guy. So finally he says, like, what's going on? Why aren't you moved by what I'm saying? The guy says, because I'm from the next town over. So that's the Mishnah here, right? Mishnah, life is temporary. We have to use our time. Okay, don't be that guy. Okay, a third approach. So there is a mitzvah in the Torah that we are to help others grow and help clarify things for them. Sometimes we call it rebuke. Maybe I think a better translation is clarification, to help clarify things for others. So the Mishnah says, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? Meaning, a person might say, well, listen, all my friends have a mitzvah. They have a commandment. They're supposed to rebuke me when I do something wrong. And so far, nobody is telling me that I'm doing anything wrong. Must be that I'm doing everything right. I must be perfect. If there's a mitzvah to rebuke and to clarify for people, and nobody's saying anything to me, then it must be that I'm doing everything right. I'm perfect. I have nothing to improve on. To that person, the Mishnah says, if I'm not for myself, if a person isn't for themselves, who will be for them? Meaning you can't count on others we can't count on others to clarify everything for us and help us grow. We need to do our own introspection and our own exploring and our own learning to help ourselves grow, and not just rely on others saying something to us, because it could be nobody saying anything to us because they didn't notice that we have something we need to improve on, or they did and they were just too shy, or they were being extra careful and they didn't want to say anything. But we can't just rely on others to point out whatever it is that we need to improve on. It's also not so easy to do that, and it has to be done very carefully. So therefore, that's the beginning of the Mishnah. If I'm not for myself, then who will be for me? Meaning, if I don't introspect and try to grow on my own, I can't just rely on others to point out anything that I need to improve in. Who will be for me? Nobody else is necessarily going to do that. And if I'm only for myself, then what am I? Meaning, the same thing going the other direction, that we are obligated to help others grow. And if we have a chance to do so, to clarify something for somebody, again, it's something that has to be done in a very, very careful manner, which is a class on its own. We actually did a class once on rebuke and clarification. But if a person has an opportunity to help another person grow and to guide them, so then, and they don't help the other person, so then and a person's only working on themselves and not willing to help others grow, very focused on my own self-development, but I'm not willing to help somebody else. So then what am I? Have I really fulfilled my purpose here? Because I made myself great, but I let others fall by the wayside? Absolutely not, the Mishnah says. And so actually, a person has to do sort of two opposite things. On the one hand, when it comes to ourselves, we can't rely on other people to build us up and to clarify and to and to help us improve, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. But when it comes to others, we have to see it as our responsibility to help others. And again, we say, though, if not now, then when? So I have a lot to do, right? I have to help myself grow. I have to help others grow. So time is short. The work is plenty. That's another Mishnah we'll learn eventually. And so if not now, then when? There's a lot to do. So according to this, the Mishnah is saying, if I can't just rely on others to point out areas where I need to improving, I have to do my own introspection. I have to do my own self-examination. And if I'm not for myself, then who's going to be for me? I can't just rely on others. But if I'm only for myself and I'm only focused on my own personal growth, then what am I? That's not the whole story. It's not enough. We're responsible to ourselves. We're also responsible to others. And since there's so much to do, so if not now, then when? So that's number 3 so far. 4, if you count the first one, Reb Shimon Shkop. But that, okay. Number 4, we'll call this 4 from Midrash Shmuel. So number 4 is very interesting. He says that the Zohar says that the word me can refer to God, right? So we say here, Im ein ani li, if I'm not for myself, mi li, who is for me? Me means who. But the Zohar says that me can refer to God. Where does that come from? So it comes from a verse that says, Re'u mi bara ela, see who created all of this. And there, the answer is God, right? Mi bara ela, who created this? God created all of this. And the numerical value of the word mi, mem and yud, is mem is 40, yud is 10, so that's 50. 50 refers to all the levels of understanding in the world. Anyways, the word me, according to the Zohar, can refer to God. So therefore, he says, it's hard for us to see our own flaws. That's just how it is. And we usually, I mean, I've never done anything wrong. I don't know about you, but right, it's usually the case. So therefore, if a person does something wrong, they're not going to recognize it. They're not going to necessarily improve on it, right? We just said that we're supposed to be doing self-introspection, self-examination. Here he's pointing out that that's not so easy, and it's hard for a person to see their own flaws. And but we have to try. We have to try to see what needs to be improved in ourselves, to recognize that we're not perfect and we have blemishes and there's things that we can improve, and try to identify what they are. And that's what it means, meaning the way that something sort of in Talmudic terminology, we refer to bias. We say we're like too close to ourselves. We're too related, right? If we are not for ourselves, meaning if we're willing to see our own flaws, if I am for myself, that means I don't see my own flaws. I'm too close to myself. But if I'm not for myself, meaning I'm willing to see, I'm not defending myself, I'm not justifying myself at every turn, I'm not always always right. So if I'm not for myself, so then me, then God, we said me can refer to God, then God will be for me, because then I'm opening myself up to the possibility of improvement, because I'm not always defending my own actions and justifying whatever I do. So then God will be there to help us improve, right? If we try to improve, then God helps us. So that's the first clause here, that if I'm not for myself, meaning I'm not justifying everything I do, but rather I'm willing to see fault in myself, so then me, God will be for us. God will cleave to us and be there to assist us in our journey of self-improvement. And but if I am for myself, right, that which here would mean if I'm defending myself at every turn and I'm never willing to take responsibility for my actions and I'm always justifying, I'm my own lawyer, right? If I am for myself, so then what am I? I'm nothing. I'm not somebody who can ever improve. Right? If we don't take responsibility for our actions, then we never did anything wrong. If we never did anything wrong, there's nothing to improve on. So if I am for myself, meaning I'm always defending whatever I do and justifying, so then what am I? I'm nothing. I'm not going to improve. And God distances himself from us. He says, measure for measure, right? If we're able, it's interesting. He says, if we can distance ourselves from ourselves, meaning not just always be defending ourselves. So then when we, so to speak, distance ourselves from ourselves, God comes close to us. If we're too close to ourselves, God distances himself from us. That's how he says it. And yeah, and I guess if not now, when would be again about improving right now, working on making the right decisions and introspection, etc. Okay. One more thought, maybe. He has a few more, but I'll just do one more and then go to the last Mishnah here. One more thought on this is that just the idea of if not now, when, he says that we're constantly obligated to perform acts in the service of God, whether it's whatever mitzvah, to always be trying to do good. Of course, we have to take rests but that's also for the sake of heaven, to take breaks and have a little enjoyment here and there. But that's again should be for the sake of heaven, to be able to continue in our service of God. So if not now, when really means if not now, I'm never going to get that moment back, right? It's not like, well, I'm obligated to do something in service of God now, or I could do it tomorrow, one or the other. No, every moment I should be devoting towards God. So if I don't devote myself to God right now, and I'd say I'll do it tomorrow, well, we just lost today. So today, we're not getting today back. We'll do it tomorrow, but we were anyway supposed to do it tomorrow, right? So there's no getting it back. So on sort of its deepest level, if not now, when, means if I don't do it now, I'm never getting that moment back, and I have to take advantage of it. So basically, just to quickly summarize the approaches we just offered in this Mishnah. So besides for the idea I opened with, that if I'm not for myself, then what am I? If I am for myself, then what am I? I have to expand my eye. My eye is so limited. If I'm just for myself, my eye should encompass others. That was from Reb Shimon Shkop. But otherwise, we said, if I'm not for myself, then who will be for me? Meaning I have to use my free will to make the right decisions. And if I do that, then mani, how great am I? That's a great thing. We have to recognize the greatness in ourselves at the same time. And the fact that we're creating the image of God, that we have free will. That was one way. Another idea was that if I don't even belong to myself, because eventually I'm going to leave this world, then certainly nothing else belongs to me. I'm not, all the things that are outside of myself, I'm not taking with myself either. I shouldn't become arrogant over my material success. And if I am for myself, meaning I start to think that I'm going to live forever, I have to remind myself that really, what am I? I'm not. And therefore, if not now, then when? Third approach was that although everybody is supposed to help each other grow, but I can't rely on others to point out where I need to grow. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? I can't just count on others clarifying for me where I need to improve. I have to do my own self-introspection, my own introspection and self-examination. And but at the same time, if I'm only for myself and I'm not helping others grow, then what am I? I'm only accomplishing half my purpose. I'm also supposed to be helping others grow. And because there's a lot to do, then if not now, when? And then we said, based on the Zohar, that me could refer to God. So if I am not for myself, meaning I'm not defending everything that I do and justifying, and there's room for improvement, then God is close to me. But if I am for myself only, meaning if I'm always defending myself and justifying and not taking responsibility, so then God, Mani, what am I? I'm nothing. Such a person can't improve, and God distances himself from that person. Okay, I think I do want to still try to squeeze in the next Mishnah. So the next Mishnah says, Shammai Omer, Shammai says, Aseh Torascha keva, make your Torah fixed. Make your Torah a fixed practice, something like that. Emor ma'at, say little, va'aseh harbe, and do a lot. Words for life, right? Speak little and do a lot. V'havei mekabel es kol ha'adam b'sever panim yafos, and receive all people with a pleasant countenance, with a smile. So, very important ideas. Make our Torah study a fixed practice, say little and do a lot, and receive everybody with a smile. So one understanding could be that, well, Aseh Torascha keva, that could be its own thing. A person has to make sure to have a regular Torah study, regular growth. Speak little and do a lot could mean, he says, like Avram Avinu, when he had guests over in Parshas Vayera, so he says, I'm going to bring you a little bit of food, and then he brought a lot. So you kind of offer little at first, but then you do much more. Okay, and I think that way, if you're not able to do it all, then you don't have to walk it back. So don't over offer. Don't say you're going to do a lot and then realize that you can't. Commit minimally to what you think you could do, and then if you could do more, then great. And that way also, when you end up doing more, so then you'll get a good reaction from everyone. People will be happy with that. I guess the expectations are a little lower. Then you produce more, so then they're happy with that. And he says, actually, right, so in the let's say in the case of guests, or we could probably apply it to other situations, but person, person's having guests and doesn't have so much to offer. So you say little and do as much as you can, but what's most important is that you do it with a smile. And that way, if even if a person doesn't have so much to offer, so at least you give them a pleasant smile. Somebody comes knocking on the door collecting, for tzedakah, so we may not be able to give them so much, but at least we should greet them warmly and give them a good smile. So that's one approach here. Additionally, he says that in terms of the Torah, making Torah fixed, so he points out that it says here, make your Torah fixed. The idea is that there's different parts of Torah. There's deep Kabbalistic secrets, not for most regular people. Then there's Torah that's accessible to regular people like you and I. That's the Torah that we need to focus on. Our portion in Torah, the part that's accessible to us, and that's what we have to make fixed. That's the first clause here. Make your Torah fixed. The Torah that's accessible to you. Maybe even we could add Torah that inspires you, Torah that's meaningful to you. That's what a person should focus on. If they're not enjoying it, then there's something for everyone in Torah, and we have to find the aspects that excite us and that will add meaning for us. And that's make your Torah fixed. Okay. Now,
Sorry,
yeah.
Sorry, what do they mean by fixed? I didn't understand.
Okay, yeah, good question. I think it means like on a fixed schedule, regular. That's how they here they say in the translation a fixed practice. So it should be something established, something regular for a person. Let me just see if on this point he adds anything about that. Yeah, that the person should be involved in it regularly. That's what we mean by fixed.
Rabbi Shabbos,
Yes.
it couldn't mean that you shouldn't try to expand your Torah learning, though.
Sure.
right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not like fixed, like just do this and don't do more, but recognize sort of where our portion is and what's not, what's really not for us. He talks about like Kabbalistic secrets, basically,
Okay.
and says that's not our portion. Focus on our portion. Similar to what we've had previously, a person might say, oh, I've studied, I don't have to, I know enough, I don't need to learn more. No, on the contrary, it should be, a person should continue to study and say, oh, this is what, right. Even if a person feels like they've studied a lot, and more ma'at, say little, say that you've only studied a little. Recognize, and that's the truth, as much as a person has studied, as much Torah as a person learned, we've learned nothing, right? There's so much, it's so vast. So make Torah a fixed practice. Recognize that we really know so little. There's so much more to learn. And more ma'at, say little, and say harbe, do a lot. Meaning in Torah study. But even a person does a lot of Torah study, don't think that somehow that makes us above anybody else, but rather continue to greet everyone with a happy countenance, with a pleasant smile. So that's another way to read it. So it all goes together. Set your, make set times for Torah study. Don't say, oh, I've learned enough, I know it all. Rather say, I've learned so little, I have so much more to learn, and more ma'at. Say, I've learned little, do a lot, study a lot, and but don't become too full of ourselves. Rather, continue to treat everyone and greet everyone with a pleasant countenance. And then maybe just to close, one last idea. He suggests, he's actually quoting from someone else, the Chassid Yavitz. Midrash Shmuel writes that this could correspond to the three parts that we said the world stands on. The world stands on three things: on Torah, on avodah, on service of God, and on gemilus chasadim, on acts of kindness. So he says this Mishnah could correspond to those two things. We already had that the following three Mishnahs after that. That was, I think, that was the first Mishnah, I think. And the following three Mishnahs talked about in detail each of those aspects. So here Shammai is giving his own three things to correspond to that. So the world stands on Torah. So he says, make Torah established, make it a fixed practice. And that's one thing. Now, in terms of acts of kindness, which one of the earlier Mishnahs had said, your house should be, in terms of service of God. So previously we had said, serve God, not for the sake of reward, but just for the purpose of serving God. So So that's the say little and do a lot. That's service to God. That's acts. That's action. And finally, we have acts of kindness. So that's the greeting people with a nice countenance. So these three parts of the Mishnah are corresponding to those three things. The world stands on three things: Torah, service of God, and acts of kindness. So with regards to Torah, Shammai said, make sure we have set times for studying Torah. With regards to service of God, he said, say little and do a lot. And with regards to acts of kindness, he said, greet everyone with a friendly countenance. And the truth is, I think that that's always the start of an act of kindness. And once we have a good relationship going like that, then the acts of kindness flow from there. All right, we will stop there.